I just had an amazing conversation with the founders of Trezi, Gautam and Tithi Tewari, a couple that have been working together for 20 years, architects, designers, and they left their jobs about 8 years ago, kind of together, kind of not together. Over time, they've built an immersive platform using Unreal Engine, which I think is kind of cool. It's a gaming engine.
When the client would walk into a completed site, they would actually tell us that, you know what, when you showed me those renders, I had visualized or I had imagined that, this is what it would look like. When you had shown me that small swatch of the laminate sample or the marble sample, I could not understand that applied to, let's say, 5,000 square feet, how would it look like?
The 3D models that usually the architects and the designers used to create for themselves and for them to present their ideas, and still did a pretty bad job of it. Now, what you do is at a click of a button, bring it into our software, and it becomes experiential.
This is Michael Waits, and welcome back to India GameChanger. Today we are joined by Gautam and Tithi Tewari, the co-founders of Trezi. Gautam and Tithi, thank you so much for coming to the show. Let's give our listeners a little bit of your backgrounds for some context. And Tithi, let's start with you. Go ahead.
Hi, and thank you so much, Michael, for inviting us on this program. And it's a pleasure to be here. A little bit about myself. I'm an architect. I finished my architecture from CEPT Ahmedabad, which is a premier-most college of architecture in Asia. And after that, I worked for about 15 years in international design firms in senior leadership roles. Prior to starting this company, which is called SmartWiz, and of course, the brand that we built over the last 8 years is Trezi, which is this immersive platform that has been created for the design industry, for the construction industry, which dramatically transforms design communication, design understanding, and design collaboration.
Gautam?
Yep. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having us here today. Just like Tithi, small coincidences. I'm an architect as well, but I realized in my journey very early that creative was not my calling. So after finishing my architecture, I went ahead and did my master's in construction management from the University of New South Wales, and finished my master's degree in the year 2000. And by virtue of having this mix of an architectural degree and a master's in construction management, got the opportunity to work with some of the largest design and project management firms across the Asia Pacific region. And, the problems that we are trying to solve with Trezi, the things that we have really managed to get done are basically problems that we faced in our 2 decades of professional journey. And, the problems around what Tithi just explained, how designs do not get understood by our clients, how in a fragmented ecosystem that the architecture, engineering, and construction industry is, despite it being a humongously large industry, the problems of collaboration remain. And so one of the big advantages that we brought to the table really with this venture was that what we are solving were the pain points that we have experienced, both of us have experienced in our professional journeys. And that's what we're here for.
I love this. 8 years doing this. Can you both maybe tell me what some of these problems are, just in a little bit more detail, right? And let me just give you a little bit of my background as well. So I built and designed a house in Tokyo with one of the most amazing architects I've ever dealt with. And just to be clear, when I asked him like what he thought his job was, he was like, I don't have a job. I have a life. And my life, and I said, what is your life? Because I figured it was just being an architect, which was, in my mind, simplistic, not the architectural part of it, but like the description of what it does. And he said to me, my job is to take empty spaces and put beautiful things into it. And I was like, wow, that's an incredible life. Anyway, talk to me about how the design part, and there's miscommunication there, how the fragmentation plays into this, and how collaboration actually ends up being really important, and why. And either one of you can start.
I'll start. I'll give it a go first, and then before Tithi's creative and architectural side really kicks in. But part of the question that you have just put forth, Michael, you've answered yourself. When you worked with this architect and you asked him that what is it that you do, this is a typical response that we architects give. That, hey, listen, I just put stuff into empty spaces. But we understand it now. If when you would have posed this question to him, I am absolutely sure you would have like, okay, what exactly are you trying to tell me? Okay, space is fine, but what is it that you put there? And this is the gap that actually comes about in practically every project that we do in the industry. So how about changing that? How about picking a design model and making a 3D view of it, and not just show it on the flat screen that we are all sitting on right now. How about all of us walking those 3D models together, and that is the problem to be solved. You've got to experience what the design is, as the customer, as the client, because if you do not experience it, you are the one who's actually cutting the check. You're the one who's paying the top dollar for the design, right? So you need to understand it before the physical construction really happens, because if I have to go in and change things after it's been physically constructed, it's going to cost you even more dollars, so that's what Trezi does. Trezi helps you understand the design experientially, using immersive technologies that have come about over the past few years, and takes it beyond the flat screens, takes it beyond the reams and reams of sheets that we print for every project, and helps us inhabit that space virtually before we actually physically go and inhabit it. Tithi, yeah.
So
Please.
I just want to make a point here. Michael, you talked about this architect and who you had the chance of working with. I want to ask you, and of course the listeners as well, that when we actually experience space or an environment in real life, it's all around us. But when we do a design, at least till a few years back, we used to actually look into 2D drawings, into static 3D stills of certain spaces, into timed walkthroughs where I could not stop if you are my client and you said, Tithi, just hold on, I want to actually go left instead of right. I could not, because the technology didn't allow that. So what we did was that we have been working on very large corporate workplace projects as part of our earlier professional practice, and we've designed offices for the Facebooks and the Googles and the best of the banks and IT companies globally. Now, while we had access to great design professionals who would be churning out 3D static stills literally by the minute, sitting in Bangkok, Thailand, very creative folks, we would still have that problem that when the client would walk into a completed site, they would actually tell us that, you know what, when you showed me those renders, I had visualized or I had imagined that, this is what it would look like. When you had shown me that small swatch of the laminate sample or the marble sample, I could not understand that applied to, let's say, 5,000 square feet, how would it look like? Would there be a grain? Would there be another sort of a impurity in the stone sample that is not looking nice now? So can we please change it? Now that would require a lot of time, effort, manpower, resource, cost, and who is paying for all of this? The customer, the client. So yes, so that's exactly the reason why we felt that if we were to actually explore technologies of today, which allow a customer to walk and experience the design in real scale and proportion, where we can just look up and look down and just bend down and look at the texture of the carpet, and then we have the options all loaded in this program where we can give you an option within a second or a minute, rather than go and tell you that, okay, Mr. Client, I'll come back to you after 1 week with my 3D team. I will re-render the whole scene, and then I will bring it to you for your approval. So this is what we have changed, Michael. This is what we were very passionate about. Both Gautam and I decided that we would actually, just leave our sort of cushy jobs, and yeah, and we said, let's just, somebody from the domain needs to explore this, and that's how the whole journey began.
So I want to get back to that in a second as well, and to the software. There's a lot to unpack there, but I want to come down on your side really hard, and I'll tell you why. I mentioned that we were designing this house. My wife was so good at understanding these spatial relationships, even with those 2D drawings and the 2D drawings and the 3D representations. And for most of the time, I just felt lost, like completely lost. And this was in 2007. So this is like almost 20 years ago. And I remember thinking back then, because when we were building the house, I would literally go to the house every single day. So as the steel poles were getting put in the ground, as the concrete was being laid, everything, I'd walk around and go like, oh, okay, that's where the oven's going to go, kind of thing. And here's where the drawers are going to be. And I get the fact that, like, A house is different than building like a space for Google or for Facebook, but it's just a scale thing. Still, the representation was so hard to figure out. So talk to me about actually what that experience is like, what the software was like that you built so that people like I am, and I think I'm in the majority, not the minority, right? Like you said, I didn't know like what the wood was going to look like, what the concrete on the wall was going to look like, what the cabinets were going to look like in the kitchen. I just didn't know. So what have you built to be able to fix that for people like I am so that when I look at it, what is that experience like? Is it VR? Is it 3D? Like, what is that whole thing?
Again, touch on the technology side of things, and Tithi can bring in how the customers and the clients are responding to what we have created now. But one of the first things for table stakes for us, Michael, was really to take the game, move the game beyond the stills and beyond the 2D drawings that we usually use to communicate. Actually, we still a significant portion of the industry still communicates in that manner, their design intent. So that's the state of the industry. So, but I think the technology has certainly moved a few rungs up than where it used to be in, say, in year 2007, when you would have made your a home in Japan. Now, the 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 big paradigm shift here is that the 3D models that usually the architects and the designers used to create for themselves and for them to present their ideas, and still did a pretty bad job of it. Now, what you do is at a click of a button, bring it into our software, and it becomes experiential. Now, if you have a VR headset, you could wear your VR headset, and I could be sitting here in Delhi, and you could be there in Tokyo, and we could both be walking that space together to show you what your eventual home is going to look like. And the process is more democratic now. You can tell me clearly, or and synchronously or asynchronously. You can leave a note behind, or in the same meeting, you can just let me know that, Gautam, I do not like this texture of this veneer. Maybe I don't like veneer at all. Maybe we're going to go explore a stone finish on this particular surface. And that is the level of democratization of the design process. I mean, architects are not happy about that entirely, let me be honest, because the early adopters of a technology said, hey, listen, is it really necessary to give the customer, the client, that much power in the design process? But why not? You are
Why
not
not?
paying
Yeah.
for it, So,
Yeah. It's my house or it's my office, right? I should have some say. And to be fair, do you think that people are used to this in a way? Like, I complain about this all the time. Maybe complain is too strong a word, but like, I am my own travel agent. I'm my own hotel booking agent. I feel like when I order food out, I'm my own waiter and waitress. Like, people are just doing all of these services themselves along with an expert. Like, I don't fly the plane. I expect you guys to fly the plane. But if I want teak on the floor and not, veneer on the floor, I should have some kind of say. And I should be able to say, like, what does it look like first so I can then make that decision and not just have somebody say from like way up here, you should definitely have this thing as opposed to that thing, right? So I think people are used to that, no?
oh, yes, absolutely, and that's the way it has been, and that is the shift that we really wanted to bring in. And I know I've said a bit too much, and he wants to speak now, but the reality is that that absolutely right. Listen, I mean, if I finish a design and I finish the construction of a home, and then you come back and you say, hey, listen, I don't like this teak floor at all. Just rip it out and put a marble there. Now, okay, I'll say, okay, fine. That is the time I'm going to agree with you, because I want to get my project finished and I want to move out of this project and go to my next commission. But the reality remains that this should have happened earlier in the process. And that is exactly what we're trying to bring in. Tithi, over to you. Sorry about that. I took
Yeah, so
that analysis.
two, 3 points. No, 2, 3 points. Michael, the construction industry worldwide is about $11.2 trillion
Yeah, it's
globally,
huge.
right? That's huge. Now, when we're talking about a home, but I mean, design sort of spans across, let's say, a room of 3 meter by 3 meter or even lesser, to literally smart cities. That's the scale at which designs are done. Now we could take a residential project as an example, or we could take a corporate workplace, a million square feet as an example. We could take a retail sort of a shop as an example. We could take an airport or a train station, a metro. So all of this now, what has been going on traditionally? Traditionally, obviously, like you said, the power has been in the hands of the professionals, and rightly so. I'm not advocating that the power should just go to obviously we've studied for 5 years. We've
Sure.
really
You
gone
definitely
through
know
the
better.
grind. Yes, so we would have a better idea, in terms of if we are professionally engaging on something after finishing those really intense years of education, and then doing our post grad studies, and then doing various other things. But the point is that the tools that existed in our industry have I mean, people have not really innovated. Like in other industries, there's been a lot of innovation, while of course on the prop tech side you would see a lot of work going on, but in the design tech side there's been really, I mean, it's been a little slower than the other industries. So from our perspective, just coming back to your question and my take on the matter, the third point that I wanted to make was that what Trezi does is it actually gives the power of quick decision making, of more transparency in the decision making, of choices that the customer must make, instead of just the architect having a shield in front and saying, I will give my client only three choices, because if I give him the fourth one, he will get confused, and then the project life cycle will increase from my planned 3 months to, let's say, 4 months. And that
Right.
would have an impact on my studio and my revenues and XYZ. So, this is what Trezi has done. It is actually democratized the whole process of design. It has made the client or the customer, or how should I put it, like a more engaged stakeholder throughout the process of the design finalization, rather than coming in at stages and then just like saying, okay, this is what I got from my professional who I engage. That's where, in a nutshell, it helps.
I like this. Can we talk about the collaboration piece a little bit as well? I understand the collaboration between, let's just say, the architectural firm and the client, but there's a lot more going on in the background, right? There's a construction company, there's the structural engineering company, all these things. Is there a way to get them involved too, whether they have a headset or not, like whether it's Vision Pro or whatever it is, to get them involved so that when you're looking at design, they can say, like, well, from a structural standpoint, like, I'm just trying to remember the name of the company that did ours. I can't remember, but they can look at it and say, actually, you're going to have to fix this or redesign that or do that thing. So is it collaborative internally as well as externally?
Absolutely. And in fact, in a project, again, depending upon the scale of the project, there could be a minimum of three to a maximum of 25 or 30, stakeholders who would come together to create that project. And these could be landscape consultants and electrical and HVAC, air conditioning, and your networking and CCTV and security. I mean, there's so many of them. Now the thing is AV, and so you could actually use the Trezi platform, which is a collaborative platform. And just like we are doing this meeting on Riverside, or we may be using Google Meets or Zoom or anything. Trezi has its own meeting platform where all of us can meet inside a design model as avatars. So if you were wearing a VR
I have to
headset,
try this.
yeah, and you would appear as wearing the headset. Let's say Gautam was on his phone and he would appear as on the phone. If I was on the desktop, I would appear like that. We would all collaborate. We would get into a design. We would review it. We would actually be able to make changes. We would be able to annotate on it. Let's say if you are in a different geography, in a different time zone, we are in a different time zone. We don't have to waste time. I mean, you could just leave notes in the model saying, hey guys, can you please change this? And we would actually, when we wake up and start our day, we would be able to look at it. And for companies that have global offices, this is fantastic, because they don't waste any time. And we have enterprise customers who actually use it in different time zones, and they have reported back to us that by using Trezi, we were able to save 30 to 40% of the time that used to be taken traditionally. So for me, it's what is really exciting is that if I can actually save a customer a quarter of the year, which means that they can go and get more business, they can get more
It's a lot of
revenues,
time.
their teams can become more efficient. That is the power of Trezi, and that's what makes me happy. About taking the plunge and believing in it and persisting with it.
Did you design all this software by yourself from scratch?
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's proprietary. There have been various partnerships and associations that have happened that have been forged along the way, Michael. So the platform in itself, the visual aspect of the platform, is built on top of the Unreal Engine, which is the largest gaming engine in the world.
Is it really?
The collaborative aspects of the platform, the digital twin creation, uploading of data onto the GCP. We're on the Google Cloud platform. So yeah, there's a tech stack that we work with, but there's a lot of proprietary code that has been wrapped around this particular tech stack. And we work in the TZI ecosystem, the Trezi ecosystem, which is our proprietary ecosystem. So yes, it's been built from scratch. But Tithi and I, we've got, Tithi leads the sales organization. So she's also the chief sales officer for the organization. I take care of the product. But we have a rock solid technology team led by an industry expert, the chief technology officer, who leads the engineering effort, who takes the domain knowledge from us, though he doesn't need to. He's a pretty smart guy himself. So he gathers whatever he can from us and takes it to the engineering team and builds on top of that.
Can we geek out a little bit on the Unreal Engine stuff, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure, please, absolutely.
So we think about it a lot. Like, we're filming in front of a green screen, right? So I think a lot about, like, what can we do with Unreal Engine to make even this process like more immersive? What can we build? What can we show? How can we use that product to do kind of what you're doing, but in the architectural, engineering, and construction space? We want to do kind of in the media space. I'm just curious for you, like, what it was like. Why did you go with Unreal Engine? There are a couple of other choices there. We think Unreal is the best anyway, but I'm just curious, like, what that choice was like. And do you build your own components and then create your own little worlds and then immerse yourself in those? Do you have like virtual cameras in different places and you can move those cameras around? Do you know what I mean? And then recreate that space. Can we geek out a little bit on that, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So going with Unreal Engine was a call that we took very early in our journey, and it was probably the potentially the most violent discussion we got into as a team. Because there was just so much of so the team that when we started out, not any longer, though the mix still remains a bit of the same. But when we started out, there were a bunch of architects, and which included Tithi and I, and there were a bunch of game programmers. And so we had this constant powwow going on in terms of, hey, listen, the visual quality is going to happen. It's going to come into the product only with this particular engine. So while Tithi and I, we and the older ones of the lot, who had the business responsibilities as well, who had the cost responsibilities as well. So we had to take a conscious call in terms of, okay, the engine is fine, but what about the spend? Though, to be honest, at that particular point in time, we did not have to really spend anything on the engine till the time we got to a particular scale as an organization.
Right.
But the gaming team, the game programmers were absolutely clear that this is the engine that we're going to work with, because there is no other engine that can provide the visual quality that we are chasing in our journey. So to just particularly address your query here, Michael, we do the camera bit of work, of course, in terms of visual capture of build spaces, but we're more CGI, right? And that's where the game engine's capability becomes extremely important. The performance meshes that we work with, real-time rendering of the models that we are creating, real-time lighting data. With Unreal Engine, all of that becomes easier for us to sort of process because of Unreal Engine's own capabilities. So we do not need to go in and start creating our lighting engine for that matter. So yes, we do write our own algorithms in terms of enhancing the performance within our industry, but the engine's own capability is so immense that the light performances, light behavior, finishes, the PBRs, all of that comes to us with every upgrade that the engine does in terms of its performance. So I think we made a wise choice back then. I'm talking about year 2018, 2019, but it wasn't an easy choice to make. Like I said, it was probably one of the most violent conversations we ever got into as a group.
Okay, just one more thing on the geek side, but like, what is the server load like on all this stuff? You must be able to maintain like massive throughput, but also a bunch of servers to make sure that engine runs in a way, like you said, so that the collaboration is seamless, right? Like, you don't want to be in a call with somebody or in an experience with someone where they're kind of like moonwalking through the building, like in 1969 or whatever year that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you don't want it to look like they're on
what
the
you mean.
space shuttle. You want it to look like they're on Earth.
And we have gone through that. We've gone through our challenges around the visual latency based challenges in terms of the real time streaming of data, everything that the technology. When we started out with this particular venture, we started out as a very services oriented approach, and the reason to do that was because the democratization of the technology in itself, to put it in the hand of the user, we were just not there. And over the years, this has changed. Over the years, it has become more easier, but still largely the visual. That's a super question you asked me, because this is one of the key discussions and decisions that we arrived at. While the collaboration and various other storage of data in terms of its raw meshes, the digital twins in its raw form, all of that happens on the cloud, and that is not too much of an ask for us. I mean, there's no huge server load requirement that goes up because of that. It is the visual compute, the real-time visual computing, that really needs the power. So the visual compute, as and when the user is working on it, they work on the local GPUs, not on the cloud, because the cloud is still not able to support real-time visual compute the way we want it to be. So
Right.
yeah, so instead of going into really heavy duty servers, which also do not serve the purpose, we tried it, and which would have actually just thrown the product pricing totally out of whack, because the amount of real-time data that would really be required to be processed every second. We decided on keeping the visual compute locally on the GPU native, and we keep the collaboration and the storage of the performance meshes and the 3D models on the cloud.
Okay. So I think it was Tithi that mentioned, maybe Gautam, I can't remember. It was so long ago, it seems. But you mentioned that like we left our cushy jobs, right? And look, I remember what it was like taking a full-time salary. Even if I hated my job, I'm like, how do I give that up for something I don't know and not don't know anything about, but like I've never run my own company. Being an entrepreneur seems kind of sexy, but it's super hard to do. What was like the tipping point? Oh, and can I ask you this too? I'm presuming, although we haven't talked about it, that you're not brother and sister. So, no, because it's also a family decision, right? So if you're brother and sister, right, like your wife can have a full-time job, or your husband could have a full-time job, or it could be independently. Like, I don't know, and it's none of my business, but if you're a partnership anyway, and you both have these great jobs and you're working with these gigantic clients and doing these big projects, it's a real decision to sit down and say, we have this vision, we only have this one life, we want our vision to play out. Are we willing to take this risk? Because even if we have the vision, even if we have the resources, our chances of success are 50-50 at best. Like, what was that decision process like? I mean, you've been at it 8 years, so you couldn't have failed. But what was it like at the beginning? Just going like, we're just going to go do this thing.
So Michael, yes, we both Gautam and I actually met at work, and we happen to be married. We are not brother and sister. Uh, we met at our first job together. We were working for an Australian firm. I was a senior designer, and Gautam came on board as a senior project manager. We've been working since 2001 together, so it's been 23 years together. And it's of course, in the beginning it was I don't know if on this show I should be saying, but Gautam was very annoying in the beginning. He used to ask so many questions,
Doesn't it
and
always start
it
that way,
used to
though?
annoy me all the time.
That's how it always starts, by the way. That's a man's job, I think, at some level. I shouldn't say that either, but I think that's just how it works. Anyway, go ahead.
Right, but anyhow, we learned to respect each other in terms of how we were as professionals. We developed that whole working methodologies together, because we were often pitted onto the same projects and we would end up working together. So over time, we actually learned how to work with each other and realized that we have very complementary skill sets. So, while I was very good in creative design, and also in terms of meeting new people, sales and business development came naturally to me, though we were not taught all of this in our architectural studies. I mean, we were only taught how to kind of design, but these were things in terms of sales acumen, and wanting to meet new people and wanting to tell them about what you've done. Generally, architects are very shy of talking about their work. So, there are all of
Okay.
those aspects. And then Gautam came in with all his execution capability. So, it was a perfect sort of a balance. There was no ego hassles, and there were no, I'm an architect and you're an architect, so hence we would compete with each other. So, all of that fell into place very quickly. uh, it just so happened that from that Australian firm we both together, sort of almost like a package deal, came to the next job that we got with the Singapore headquarter design firm, and we spent about 10 years there. It was like a decade. It was a beautiful time. We built that company from scratch to becoming the second largest in the Asia Pac region. It was through a lot of challenges, and we were at the center of everything. We were making all decisions along with the founders, and it was a lovely time for us, where there was a lot of professional growth, financial growth, and credibility building, expanding the network. All of this was on the positive side. Of course, I happened to be sponsored partially by the company to go to INSEAD to do, an executive education course. And I happened to be there, and it was a lovely 1 year for me, where I explored myself fully. And I realized that I care deeply about some of these things that we used to discuss every day, that these are the problems with our profession. And despite doing so well, there's this funny thing that all these topmost executives of the world are saying that, your technology is very archaic and it hasn't really innovated, and should we not really, as conscious professionals, do something about it? And my team in INSEAD actually convinced me that, you really should, if you care so deeply, please do find the courage to go and be an entrepreneur. And Gautam and I spoke about it, and we said that, why don't we just do it while we can? And we don't want to be 50 and then say, hey, we could have done this, and we
Right.
did. So that's when the decision got taken. I stepped out first. We were also conscious of the fact that our stepping out would mean that our previous organization would get impacted. So we tried to lag the exit in a way that things would fall into place for that organization as well. And then we started working together, because that's the best way we know how to work. Honestly, I don't think I could work with anyone else, because we have a very good understanding. The things that Gautam is good at, we have a natural understanding of. He just takes the lead on those, and what I'm good at, I take the lead on those. So that's how it has been up till now. And that's how yeah, but like, coming back to the question, yes, it is flying without a safety net. It is very difficult, because we are both married with two small children, with a lot of responsibilities. And we decided that, we're going to step out of a comfortable salaried sort of a every month take home, to a very, very volatile, if I could call it that, time, where with being entrepreneurs and feeling great about ourselves in terms of being able to do something. But yes, it's been, we could have been at a different level financially, but we chose this, and we accept our choices and move forward. So that's how it is. That's my take, but Gautam, feel free to add.
So it's entrepreneurship is tough, Michael. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you've got to find ways of motivating yourself on a daily basis, and just like, I mean, there's so much of leadership that you don't need to just read about or talk about. There's leadership that you need to demonstrate on a daily basis. Like he said, from a predictive large organization setup coming to a volatile day-to-day change sort of a situation that you have to kind of not just respond to. You actually need to kind of first embrace it, feel comfortable with the change, and then think about, okay, today is going to be like this, and because of this action something else is going to come in and get done, and guess what, next day is an absolute dead end, and you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
So it's tough. and that's there's no other way about it. So that's what I mean. I've had the privilege of speaking to a lot of young students at various colleges and institutions where I get invited to speak, and that's what I keep telling them, that hey, listen, you really need to kind of be ready for the grind if you want to be an entrepreneur, and I don't think, I mean, while you were sort of articulating your question, I was already thinking about it. Now, there's going to be, this is an interesting one, right? And this is probably the first time I'm thinking about it. Now, if you were to kind of at the end of the show tell me that, hey, listen, I'm going to give you that fact check salary all over again and go back and do it, and you don't need to go through this entrepreneurship based struggle, would I say a yes or a no? I think I'll say a no.
You would, though, because you wouldn't. And if you said you would say yes, I would argue with you, and I'll tell you why. You are completely unemployable, and not because you're bad at your job. It's because you've been doing this now for 8 years. You're actually too good at your job. That's why you can't be employed by somebody else. And the same thing with Tithi. You couldn't, I mean, you could obviously, but at the margin you can't, because you know too much, you've done too much, you've driven too much, you've built too much. And to just go sit back in an office and have somebody say, I need this by Thursday, you'd just be like, I just don't think I can do it. That's what I mean. That's a compliment.
Hang
not an
on.
answer,
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Very, very well articulated. Yes, maybe that's the thing that would keep me away from going back to a desk-based job.
Sorry. Can I ask you this, though? Because we're talking a little bit about entrepreneurship. What do you think what kind of characteristics, because you've been at this for a while now, make a great founder? Like, what do you think?
I think from my perspective, what I've realized in this 8-year-long journey is that I think the one is, of course, you really must care deeply about something that you want to change. That is the most important ingredient. If you don't care deeply, if you're not passionate enough, I think my advice would be don't do it, because
Don't do it. I agree.
it's no point in just doing it for the quote unquote being sexy, being entrepreneurship is sexy, I mean, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but if you don't have something that you really care about and you want to change and you want to actually that keeps you awake at night, then don't do it. The second thing is you need a lot of patience, a lot of patience. I mean, that is the key. When things don't go right, and chances are that, 80% of the time they will not go right, that you have to believe that it's okay, we'll take the knocks, but we'll come right up and we will wait for the right time. And then, of course, perseverance. I think patience, perseverance, and caring deeply about something that you want to do in this world, something that you want to change. I think these are the three things that I feel make a great founder.
And I agree with most of the things. In fact, I agree with all of the things that Tithi has said, Michael. But I think I'll just add one more thing. And this opened up for me about a couple of weeks back. We've got a teenage daughter. She's getting ready for her applications for US universities, and we kind of keep talking about her essays these days. So we end up reading a bit our own selves and keep learning new things, which is the exciting part of this application process for us. But the thing that opened up for me is the concept of adversity quotient. I think as a founder, your adversity quotient really needs to be high. You really need to be able to stare down, play this stare to death sort of a game with adversity. You've got to face it every day and not back down. If all the three things that I agree to with Tithi, if all those things have to be true, you have to have the perseverance, you have to have the grit, you got to have the commitment. But where does that get applied? It gets applied on that day-to-day adversity that you face. That you could have funding issues, you could have IP issues, you could have attrition issues, you could have just about anything. And like I said, you plan one day and the next day you hit a dead end. So that's adversity, right? So you have to be able to kind of not get too. I mean, you will get perturbed. After the end of the day, all of us are human beings. So yes, get perturbed, you get knocked down, get up, dust yourself off, and start running again. I think that's really what I think is a quality in a founder that would really help each one kind of continue on their journey.
Yeah, I would add one more thing, because I agree with both of you on all of this stuff. The adversity quotient is super important. Perseverance, patience. We talked about this on our prep call. Like, if you don't care, you shouldn't be doing this, because there are plenty of other ways, and I would contend easier ways to earn money. I think one other thing that I would add, and I think there are a few more, is just the ability to communicate with people what your vision is and on your day-to-day basis, just like where things stand. Because, and I'm just talking about this because last week we had this thing in our own organization and I was like, I don't think we're communicating well enough right now. And I think we're all like operating in little silos and I think all of us feel a little bit isolated. And I think once that happens, you're just like, is Gautam really doing his job? And he's off to the left going, Tithi didn't take care of that. You know what I mean? Like you just start thinking like all these other things. But if you're communicating on a regular basis, even if there is adversity, the way you're dealing with it in an open way, I think makes building that thing easier because you always know where you stand. And as hard as it is, I think that just makes that entrepreneurial journey to not be too trite, like just so much easier because at least you know where you are, if that makes sense.
That's a very good point, Michael. Yes, I agree.
Okay. So before I let you two go, this is fascinating. And I actually have a few more things I want to cover. When you left your other jobs, right? It sounds like both of you did this in a way that was very, what's the right word? I don't want to say calculated because that sounds mean. It was very in a moderated way. You're like, I'll do this first. We want to make sure that our existing responsibilities don't just get dropped and that the people with whom we're working still like us and respect us, because at some point they're potential clients. Also, the other clients with whom we were dealing with in this other organization could be clients of ours, and we could then work together in a collaborative way to make this all better. So I feel like you've done a really good job at that. But having said that, 8 years later, did some of your existing clients then become new clients because they looked at what you're doing and said, oh my God, this makes our entire lives easier. How can we use the platform in collaboration with you to then make our end clients' lives better? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'll tell you what, Michael, so like I told you, our initial part of our journey, first 3 years, 4 years, in fact, were primarily services, right? We were creating solutions. We were going back to some of these old customers as well and showing them that, hey, listen, when we met you in our previous avatar, it was we used to come with these 3D stills. Now you could actually experience your design. That some of those customers became the users of our solutions at that point in time very quickly. But it just did not end there. Actually, when we created the product and when we were doing an early adopter program, first 100 users for the product came within a couple of months, and all of us thought, wow, we're onto something rock solid here. And it happened because of our industry connects. It happened because of our previous connects with our customers, with our even competitors who we used to compete against. When we went to their office, that, hey, listen, we used to compete, all right, but today we are here to discuss something else with you. We used to compete on this crap sort of technology, and this is what we have created. How about you guys using it? Pardon me for my friend, but that's what we did. But that's so that is what got us onto the journey of productization fairly quickly. So yes, I think I would like to say the credibility that got developed over that decade-long journey that Tithi spoke about, the honesty with which we did our work back then, and even now, the honesty with which we wanted to create an intervention that is better for the industry overall, is what brought the results around. I mean, in the entire scheme of things, those results really seem extremely paltry now. I mean, we could have done far much more had the pandemic not struck. But then that's life. The dead end that came our way, and we kind of worked our way through it. So that's what I would say.
Got it. Okay. Before I let you both go, this has been amazing, and I think you should come back like 6 months. I love when I have great guests on. I always invite them back before the recording's over because things change, and I don't know what's going to happen. But I will ask both of you this, and I'll give you both a chance to answer. What do you think is coming? Like, what is the future of this? What's the short term? What's the long term future of this? Where are we going?
Okay, so you want to go first, Gautam? You want me? So I think I am a firm believer, Michael, that this is the decade of the digital. I mean, where if we do not innovate, I mean, in all our businesses, I think, irrespective of what we are doing, we have to be very open-minded about innovation, about what technology can do, about how we can do things faster, more efficiently, how we can make them more democratic, and for me, how I look at Trezi, like today and 5 years later, I want Trezi to be a global leader of innovative, immersive technologies play. and the platform should be used by, currently it's more a B2B, but ultimately it has to become a B2B2C. And I want every person who's designing their shops, their homes, their large buildings, their infrastructure, everything to, all of those projects should actually be done on Trezi platform. That's my vision. I would want to, we've started our global expansion. We have actually set up a subsidiary company in UAE. The next stop is the US. So we want to scale this. We really are in it. I mean, like Gautam said, we are both extremely committed, and we both believe that what we started out, we have to take it to, I don't know if culmination is the right word, but we have to take it far. I don't know what's the end of this journey, but it should just be a continuously evolving, innovative journey which helps the industry.
So I am actually extremely gung ho about the future, Michael. And the reason I say that is that the current workforce in itself, I mean, the workforce that is there with us in our own organization, we've got workforce that is probably a couple of generations behind us already. I mean, not behind in terms of use of technology, but more in terms of the age factor I'm speaking about. And the way they work is just so awesome to kind of work with them. How fast they are, the thinking, the level of maturity. Yes, I've got challenges too, but then fact of the matter is that they are not averse to new interventions the way our generation is. And then there is the generation where there's our kids, the generation that is still going to school, and they're going to come into architectural institutions, and they're going to use this technology through the programs that we've been running. So Trezi Academy is one such program that we run, where I actually go in and I ask people that, hey, listen, do you need any? I ask these college going kids that, listen, do you need any help in terms of using this? Some of them have actually been able to tell me a bit more about my product than I already know. That you could have actually done this too. So I am extremely gung ho about the new workforce coming in say 7-8 years, and having grown up on this new, and not just Trezi. I'm not talking about Trezi in particular. I'm just talking about a paradigm shift in terms of immersive technologies. The way the challenge. So we have gone through our challenges, but the fact remains that Meta has gone through its own challenges too. So has Microsoft. So has Google. In terms of the kind of devices that they have put into the market, and they too are kind of waiting for the adoption to hit that particular peak that they have all been building towards. So I think in the next decade and a half, we'll have all these devices that came through in the mid of last decade become mainstream, be a part of our work desk. And at that point in time, the way the work will happen, things like what we have been working towards and things that we've been creating are actually going to see, we will see them become part of the day-to-day activities. And that's what keeps me awake at night in a good way. It's like really, really excited about what the future holds.
I love this. Okay, look, I hope both of you enjoyed this as much as I did. Gautam and Tithi Tewari, the co-founders of Trezi, you were both awesome. You have to come back. Thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it.
It's been wonderful, Michael. Thanks so much for having us.